Welcome to another video where I build a mortising jig for the router from plans by the Woodsmith Store. It basically consists of three main sections: the upright support, the platin, and the fence. I begin by cutting the parts I need from 3/4 birch plywood described in the cut list from the plans. I use scrap hickory to make the platin base. There are parts in the video where I didn't quite get the camera centered on the project, and there are a couple of details that I didn't capture due to the battery dying. Hopefully, there is still enough captured video to give you the gist of how the process is going. At this point, I rip enough hickory scrap to make the platin, cutting out cracks and other defects to glue up and plane down to the thickness specified in the plans. And of course, this is where I glue the strips together. After letting the panel sit overnight to let the glue dry, I then take it to the planer to plane it to the correct thickness. Next, I move to the miter saw to square it up and cut it to length, after which I run it through the drum sander. I then finish sanding it with an orbital sander. And now the parts are ready to start assembly. I now mark and mill each part according to the plans. Here I mark round overs to sand the corners. I mark where I need to drill holes for T-nuts to give the fence an adjustable mount. This will make sense later. I use a 1-inch Forstner bit and drill a 1/16 depth to countersink the T-nuts. Next, I use a 7/16" bit to drill the rest of the way through for the awl thread that will be used for mounting the fence. I then add the T-nuts. The holes I am drilling here is for assembling the upright of the jig. Again, I neglected to get the camera centered on the project. I made a terrible mistake here by attaching this panel with the T-nuts out when I needed to turn them in. I don't show it here, but I end up tearing it apart and reattaching it correctly. Fixing mistakes is just a part of woodworking. Next, I begin assembling the top of the upright. probably the most critical assembly of this project is the platin. If this doesn't turn out correctly, the mortise will not be right. I begin by drawing the cutout for the slots that will be crucial for the router to cut the mortises. I then start to assemble the platin. I put a V-groove bit in the router and use it to mark a center line in the platen to cut the opening where the bit will protrude through to cut the mortise. I cut out where the router bit will protrude through the platen to cut mortises. After I finish the platen, I take a scrap piece of maple and start making the fence. I begin by ripping it to width and then cutting it to length. After that, I draw for the slots I will need to cut out to mount it to the upright and making it adjustable for different size mortises. Next, I drill out the ends of the slots. I then use a jigsaw to cut from one end of the slot to the other. I then pre-drill pilot holes to add toggle clamps to hold the work pieces to the jig. The fence is secured with all thread and star knobs. The jig is now ready for use. I clamp it to the work table and begin marking the stock for the mortises. These are just scraps I am using for test pieces to see how well it works. I will cut a mortise in the end of one piece and then one in the edge of the other to add a loose tenon. I then use the piece I marked to set up the fence. Next, I begin to line up the platen with the marks I previously added for centering the mortise in the workpiece. I use the bit in the router to aid with adjusting the platen. After that, I use the adjustment rods I made from all thread to limit the side movements of the router. I then set the depth of the bit to cut the depth of the mortise needed for the tenon. I cut the mortise in several passes using the adjustable plunge depth feature on the plunge base. I go through the same process marking the side of the second piece for a mortise, but this time changing the setup on the fence to a sideways position. I cut a loose tenon to fit the mortise and then glue the pieces together, afterwards adding a clamp until the glue sets up. I'm really happy with how the finished joint turned out. I hope this was helpful for you. I believe this will be a very useful jig for future projects coming up. I have a white oak dining table in the works and plan on putting this to good use to attach the legs to the skirts. And if you like what you see here, feel free to comment, hit the like, and it definitely wouldn't make me upset if you subscribe. Thanks for watching.